Slow down, you move too fast. Gotta make the morning last. Kicking down the cobblestones, looking for fun, feeling groovy. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-dum, feeling groovy.
Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the bridge. It's still morning in the Pacific Northwest, but on the East Coast it's afternoon, and we've got a great guest today. But first, Sandy, give us a quote.
Okay, our quote for today is you can't help what you feel, but you can help how you behave. And that's by Margaret Atwood.
Okay, thank you. Um, so, like I say, we've got Evelina. Did I say it right?
Yeah,
Evelina.
Evelina. Yep.
Evelina. And she's going to tell us about her wonderful company and what she does and what she loves about it, what her passions are. And we welcome you to the bridge.
Thank you. Yeah.
Evelina.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Sue and Sandy, for having me on. Sure. So my name is Evelina Mroczka. I opened up my company, Real Authentic Self, in August of last year. And it came from my own personal journey, honestly, to find my own authentic self. I've been on a personal growth journey, I would say, for like the last maybe 4 or 5 years. And it's taken me a while, but it is so worth it. It is worth everything when you can really understand who you are, what are your values, what are your beliefs, how do you show up in this world, not what society or your family or your friends or whatnot try to tell you how to live or behave. Because I feel like that's the only way to really
Sure.
live a passionate, free, happy life when you're actually doing things that you want to do that no one is forcing you to do. So I'm on a journey now, to help other people really find themselves, because I feel like a lot of people are just a little bit lost. Like they don't, they're going around with their day to day, and sometimes they're having issues that they don't really know where they're coming from. And a lot of our, experiences come from our childhoods, how we were raised and our programming essentially. And so that's kind of where, I work with my clients to understand a little bit about their past. We don't stay in the past because it's not therapy, it's coaching, it's moving forward, but you do need to understand your past to understand your present and to get to your future. So yeah, I focus on the past, then I focus on trying to really help the people find what they really want out of their life and who they are, and are they actually showing up like that. And then a little bit of it is mindset reset, like reprogramming the mindset to see, did those beliefs that you had in childhood, they served you in a childhood, but do they actually make sense today in adulthood? So it's kind of like a layered approach to the coaching. And I hold the clients accountable. If they say they want to actually achieve something, we do a metric system and make sure that they're actually getting from point A to point B on this metric system to get them where they eventually want to be. So it's a very fulfilling job. I'm really want to give back to the community, because I feel like a lot of people these days need it and they just don't want to talk about it. But we talk about.
Yeah. So I kind of have two ways I want to go with a couple of questions.
Sure.
Being drawn to coaching, I know that you're a leader. So, I'm kind of curious as to, what brought you to coaching. Whoops. I don't know what happened, why she popped off. I don't know if that's or what. Yeah, here we are. I don't know what happened. I didn't push any buttons. I promise.
Okay. Technology, you gotta just go with it.
Anyway, so sort of a little bit about your leadership journey, but starting your own business, I know you're an entrepreneur. And so, I kind of want to touch a little bit on that, about what are the qualities and the traits that make you an entrepreneur. So tell me a little bit about your leadership journey and what attracted you to coaching, and then we'll go into the entrepreneur.
Yeah, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, actually. Both my parents are entrepreneurs in different avenues, and a lot of actually my family members are. So I've worked in corporate. I have 20 years of corporate experience. I've done that, in my former life. And always wanted to work for myself. Like, I feel like I have the management, the organizational, skills that I can manage my own business. And again, I want to like give back to the community and actually help people. I actually want to help people live a better life.
Mhm.
And so, I want to have my own work-life balance, work, from anywhere, whenever. So that's a big thing for me, but also just managing, my own schedule and helping other people. Yeah.
Sure, that's awesome. So let's stick with leadership and coaching for a minute.
Yes.
What would you say that your maybe one, two, or three leadership traits that have been just kind of in your pocket your whole life?
I think honesty. That's why I named my company Real Authentic Self. I think I'm very honest. I say it as it is. I don't sugarcoat stuff. And I think people, like my clients, they can tell that right away. When we do the 30-minute discovery call, I have heard from many of my clients that say, you know what, Evelina, I love your transparency.
Yeah.
You say it as it is in a nice, honest way. I'm not rude about it, but people need to hear the truth. Like, I'm not just going to sugarcoat stuff and pretend just to go along with what they want to hear. So I think honesty is a huge one. I think determination, like I am not going to give up. Like and persistence, I think would be the third one. I mean, for me if I really want something, like if I have a big drive, high drive, if I want something, it is practically impossible for me, for anyone to talk me out of it. If it's something I really want, if it's a really like a deep burning desire, forget it. It's not
Good. That's awesome. That's awesome.
gonna work. I'm moving.
Yeah, yeah. Those are three really, really good qualities. And let's move into kind of the traits, and they're not so different, but the entrepreneurship. You said you kind of grew up in that atmosphere. What are some of the important traits if there's someone out there right now who is thinking of going out on their own and becoming an entrepreneur, what might you tell them that they probably need to have already? What traits?
Grit. I think you got to have grit. You got to keep going, because life will bring you down. People may bring you down, circumstances, they may say, oh, this is never going to work. Whatever. You roll up your sleeves and you keep going. Like, don't listen to other people. That would be my word of advice.
Okay.
Do not listen. You know what you need to do in your heart. You have that intuition. You know when something is right or wrong. People will always try to dissuade you because they couldn't or didn't do what you want to do, right? And if they didn't do that in their life, they may feel a little bit, off if you have achieved something. So don't tell people your goals, just do them. Actions speak louder than words, so you don't need to tell people what you're going to do. Just go and do it. I think that would be the biggest one. And confidence too. You have to have the confidence that, you can help your clients. If you don't think you can help your clients, you're definitely not going to be able to help your clients.
No.
That mindset piece of it is huge. You got to have the mindset and the confidence to know that, you know what, I can help them. I know I can help them, and I will help them.
That's right. I love that. I heard the word intuition in there. And I personally think that that's really, really important. But it took me a few years, even of coaching with clients, to get braver at really telling people what jumped out at me. So talk to me about your journey with intuition and how you use it today.
You just kind of know when something feels right or wrong. Like, you just have that sixth sense, listen to it. There's a reason why you're having that reaction. Like your quote of the day, Sandy, when you said you can't, you can't change what you feel, but you can change kind of like how you behave to the feeling. The feeling is a feeling. You cannot change it. It's just intuitive. And if you feel a certain way about someone or a situation or something, listen to it. Listen to that gut feeling. There's a reason why you're feeling that way. It's not just for no reason.
But also choose how you're going to react to the situation, right?
Absolutely. Yes, because exactly. Someone can say whatever they want to you, right? Or a situation, life is unfair sometimes. It throws you curveballs, right? How you react to it tells tells you more about yourself than
Oh,
you
yeah.
know anything else. Like, because anyone can say whatever, but it's how you choose to react to it and stay calm, because it's all about calmness. You don't need to overreact, because that's not going to get anywhere, right? So staying calm and choosing, yeah, how to react. It is sometimes hard, as you know, especially if it's like, you know, it's pushing up against a nerve, but you have to choose to kind of be like a little bit the wiser one and
Right.
not.
And if you're the leader, your people are watching you to see how you're going to handle it. And that's the thing, is learning comes from observing more than anything else. If somebody is, like you said, saying the words but not walking the walk, people figure that out real fast. And the trust and respect goes to the drain, because people figure you're not safe and you don't really mean what you're telling them.
Yes, and respect is earned. That is one thing that I have realized throughout my life. Respect is earned. You know,
Right.
it doesn't matter what relationship it is, if it's family of origin, if it's with colleagues, work, even your kids. I mean, respect is earned. It goes two ways. Don't expect someone just to have a relationship with you just because
Yeah.
you think they should have a relationship with you. It's like,
Right.
well, how have you been showing up in the relationship? Like, that is not earned right away. You have to earn it. Sorry, it's not given right away, is what I'm trying to say with the
Right.
respect.
Yeah. And I use the word trust sometimes, but I always say that trust is built on trustworthy actions.
Exactly.
So like you say, it's earned. It's not given all the way. I mean, it's not given automatically. But the title of your company is just fascinating. I love
Yeah,
it. You
thank you.
get comments on it a lot?
Well, yeah, because they know, okay, authenticity. It's all about authenticity. I didn't know how else to like make it as bold as I possibly could,
love
that it truly is about finding who you are deep down. And yeah, it does take time though. It's a lot easier to point the finger at everybody else and be like, it's their fault, and have that like victim mentality.
Yeah.
It says a lot more about you as a person, like this
Mhm.
growth mindset, when you can actually focus on yourself. Because you cannot
Right.
change anyone else. You can try as
No.
much as you want, but ultimately, the only person you can change and work on is your own self.
Yeah, yeah. And if I'm being authentic, people know
Oh,
it.
100%.
I feel the energy, and I don't have to
Yeah.
pretend. And pretending and faking it is a totally different energy that people give off.
Yeah, and it's exhausting. There's only so much pretending you can do. It's just, you're right. It's the energy. You can tell when someone is being authentic with you. You can tell when they're just saying things just to kind of move you along. And for me, I right away already, my guard goes up when I can tell, this person may not be the most authentic. You know, I think they're just saying stuff for the sake of saying it.
Sure.
So then you gotta protect yourself.
We just
Yeah.
finished a book study with a group on our website, and it was called Let Them, and it's by Robbins.
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
talking about let them and let me. So in other words, let them do what they need to do. I don't need to judge them. I don't need to try to make them change their mind about something. I can let them do what they need to do, but let me, again, show up authentically. Exactly what you're talking about is let me be real to the people in my world so that I can build relationships that are healthy. I think that's the basis for having a healthy relationship, is being who you are truly. And like you said, knowing who you are, first of all, and show
Yeah.
up, and you can't be authentic if you don't know who you are.
Right, and you can't even actually have a real relationship with someone
No.
if you're not authentic. If you're just pretending to do things just to kind of keep the peace, you know, you don't have to argue. You can just simply say, I agree to disagree, or I don't see it that way. Thank you for your opinion, but I don't see it that way. Like, there are ways to be authentic without being rude.
Right.
And exactly, let people be who they are, but you should at the same time be who you are.
Right.
Yeah, and I heard you say this earlier in different words, but I love the phrase, let your yes be yes and your no be no. You know, so you're honest with people.
Yes, you don't need to explain, because I feel like a lot of times I've also struggled with this in the past, like this people pleaser, and you have to say yes and then why, or you have to say no and give a 5 hour explanation. It's just like, no, I just don't feel like it. It doesn't have to be rude. Just I simply don't feel like doing that right now.
Well, and such a breakdown comes when we have an agenda when we talk to
Oh, yeah.
somebody, and and it often is hidden. But I'm thinking about my agenda rather than really being present with who you are.
Yeah.
And people know that too, and they're not going to be authentic back if you're pretending.
Yeah, I actually read a quote somewhere, and it was such a good quote. It said, if you can go into a room and truly like not care what anyone else thinks about you or your actions, whatever you said, that's when you know you are truly authentic. Like it's something along those lines that, like, yeah, if you really don't care, it doesn't bother you, and you show up as you are, and people can say, and as they say or as they do, that's when like, you've got the growth and the healing to kind of.
Right. Well, and the atmosphere is so different when even one person comes in and they're authentic and real. The room changes, and you've impacted more than just yourself.
Yes. Yes, because you can let them, but you can show by example. Like you can lead by example.
Yeah.
Like people don't necessarily need to change, but if you change how you react and how you observe or whatever, the situation changes because you are who you are.
It's a different place. Absolutely. And one of the basic human needs, whether somebody is 2 or 102, is to be seen and heard.
100%.
Yeah, and often, very less than often, I guess, we don't feel seen and heard. And it's tough. It's tough to communicate when there's a whole bunch of other stuff floating around the room.
Well, in our society right now, it seems to be really at odds. I mean, there's like a line driven kind of in the middle of our society about what our belief system is or what our value system is. And it's hard to know how to be authentic and still be respectful to somebody else who may feel differently. How do you deal with that, Abina?
That's the thing. You don't judge them. You simply, if you know your values are so drastically different, you're not going to change their value system. Right. It is so ingrained in them, usually through programming. However, you can challenge that as an adult. You can challenge that and say, does that value system make sense? And listen, hear the other person out. You don't have to fight with them about it, but just hear the person out. And if you really are like, my goodness, on totally different spectrums, you can just simply say, thank you for your opinion. I don't see it that way. I don't see the world that way. I don't see this that way. So let's just get off the conversation because we're obviously see things differently. Doesn't have to be this huge elaborate discussion of why, but if you really cannot seem to come in agreement, there's no point to try to convince that person or them trying to convince you, because likely it's just going to end up an argument.
It's funny because our family gatherings, oftentimes we are at different points on the spectrum, and we have just decided not to even bring it up because it's easy to get emotions high, and that's not where you want to go with that. But yeah, it can be a challenge.
I heard you use the word judgment. Don't judge them. And I've found I kind of usually apply it to education. That's because that's sort of, where I've lived for so many years as an educator. But I always say judgment shuts down learning.
Yeah. Well, because, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I don't have to say that judgment out loud. If I judge you just internally, it still puts that wall up. It's that energy
again. Exactly. It is. You give off this energy, this vibe, and people can sense it. And it actually makes people uncomfortable. You can tell when it's like, this person does not really feel comfortable in this conversation. I can tell. I didn't say anything, but it's sometimes it's the subtle mannerisms that even they use that you can tell they're not really vibing. But again, that is their life view. I mean, they maybe had circumstances in their life that made them think that way. And they have a right to think that way, but
Right.
does not mean that I have to think that way as well. Like, you know,
Right. And you said this before, but it's connected to judgment.
yeah,
If I judge you, I'm really not respecting you.
that's true. Yeah, you're completely 100% correct. You're right, because there's something about that
Yep.
situation that you're not
There's a
vibing, but it
wall.
could also be an internal trigger of
Right.
It could
that,
be.
you know, you have a bias for whatever reason of something because that was programmed into you. So that's like sometimes I feel like people, that's when the self-reflection, you have to point it back on yourself and be like, why am I
Yeah.
so triggered by this behavior? Why am I so triggered by what this person said to me? Okay, it's their opinion. They could say the sky is pink. Cool, sky is pink. You know, why am I so triggered by it though? Why am I like having to correct them? And be like, no, the sky is blue because in this spreadsheet, in this data, it's like, why do you have to go there? Like, that's an internal thing that you got to check yourself and realize, why is it so important to me to correct that person? If they think it's pink, let them think it's pink. Why do I have to care so much? You know?
It's so powerful to have that mirror in front of you and ask yourself, so this is curious. Maybe I don't like what's happening, but this is really more about me because I'm being triggered.
100%. When you're triggered, it's all about you. It is not about the other person. And I'm not saying people or situations can't, you know, really stir up your emotions. They sometimes absolutely can, but how you're reacting 100% is about you and something that happened to you, usually in the past, something that someone said or did, indirectly or directly, sets you off in that way. And that's why when you hear that now in adulthood, it's an automatic like trigger, and you have to trace it back to like, when was another time that I felt, you know, abandoned or I felt unheard or unseen? Like, where's this really coming from?
Yeah. I used to say feedback is information, not definition.
Yeah.
And it's I would have people, you know, put that on their computer screen because it's a real learning to get beyond, you know, worrying about what people think.
Yeah, it's a growth too. It's not easy, right? Because we're taught, I feel like, a little bit in society that, like, you know, you should be nice and, you know, like, care about other people's opinions. I think we're changing though as a society. I think people are being like, no, I really don't have to do that anymore. And it's not being rude. I think people are just being authentic, because people are like, oh, they're being too sensitive. I don't think they're being sensitive. I just think they're actually speaking their truth now. And they're like, I'm not going to be silenced anymore by whatever you say I have to believe or do or think. You know, I think people are actually now these days are actually focusing on mental health and focusing on actually being authentic. And it rubs people the wrong way that they're like, no, we got to silence this person. It's like, well, why? They just want to.
No, and it's, you know, growth is all about self-awareness.
It is. Yep.
You know, and being a leader of yourself first. You can pretend to lead groups, but unless you're leading yourself first, it's not there. And I agree that the culture's changing.
Oh, big time.
You know, and it has to do with self-awareness and self-leadership and being who you really are. Not everybody accepts it yet, but it's coming. There's a wave of self-awareness and self-growth coming.
But again, it is you can feel a certain way, but some of the things that makes me sad is the behavior that people are allowing themselves to do. Well, this is how I feel, and doing this stuff. Bad behavior is bad behavior. I don't care what side of the line you are drawn to. It still comes down to you choosing how you're going to act out on your belief system. And
well, yeah, and it has to do, but bad behavior there needs to be consequences
100%.
for them.
Right.
It's not a be nice thing.
No.
You know, so whether or not you're a leader in a corporate environment or even a friend, you know, this is the boundary. And when you behave this way, this is what's
accountability as to what you're doing. And it makes me just
and that's
out and and call that communication. Boy, you know what? You can still let your feelings or your belief system be known without trashing stuff and
Yeah, violence is not the answer. It
causing,
never has been. It never
no,
will. Yeah.
causing damage to
No.
other people's property and that kind of thing. Just not okay.
That's when
Well,
we
and
take
it doesn't,
authenticity too far. Sorry, that's when
yeah.
it's too far. When they're like, "Oh, I'm just being authentic when I spray paint your whole house." No, no, you can't. Or destroy, or just throw all your clothes outside. It's like, no, that's a little bit on the other side. That's not what we mean by authenticity.
Right, right. No,
No,
I
not
know,
at
I
all.
know what you're saying because
And
you're back down to what we just talked about. Your feelings are valid, but how are you going to act out on that, on your feelings or your judgment or your, uh,
yeah,
how does that look?
And what are you
yeah,
modeling to other people? Like I have little kids at home, and I'm always aware of, like, how am I showing up to these children? Like, what the behavior that I'm displaying every day, like between me and my spouse, between me and my friends, between me and my, parents,
yeah,
whatever. They're learning that. I don't even have to say anything. They just see that they're very smart. Like, kids like sense everything. So you're kind of like modeling the
Right.
behavior
oh,
as a leader, whether it be a leader of children, leader in school, leader at work,
Right.
whatever. You are leading by example. Exactly. So when people
yeah,
see you freaking out, at a supplier in a meeting, it's going to say more about you than the supplier.
Right.
yeah. And I know that there was a guy years ago who wrote a book called "The Students Are
Oh yeah.
Watching," and it was always my premise that the kids in schools were learning bullying from the adults
Wow.
because you know what I mean, the teachers would bully each other, and you know what I mean, the whole system bully, 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 and that's the kids are just acting out what they see, or sometimes in their families
Yep,
too.
100%.
But
Yep, they learn so much. And what we learned from our caregivers, right, growing up, and then we think that's normal behavior, and we take that to our now adult relationships, both personal and professional. And sometimes it was not the best modeling. I'm sorry, it wasn't. And you have to be enough self-aware to realize that was not good modeling. You don't, like, you don't need to go and discuss it, let's say, with your parents. Okay, whatever. It is what it is. Unless it's toxic, then you should. Like, otherwise, you do need to challenge it, though. You can't live under a bubble, under a rock, and act like, oh, that was totally normal. Like,
And I think it's interesting. We talk about culture as if it's like you're from a different country.
yeah,
Every family has their own culture.
100%.
Everybody has their own way of how they do exactly what you're saying is what was your background when you were growing up as a child. And everybody has their own culture.
yeah, we used to call it family of origin.
That's what it is.
That's your family culture, yeah. And yeah, it's just amazing, and I love the fact that you bring people around to their triggers, because until we become, I mean, I remember probably at least 10 or 15 years ago, my son was talking to his daughter in my house, and I was really irritated with what he was doing, but I had to shut up. I mean, as an adult parent, you have to shut up. But I said to myself, oh my God, I hear him saying what I said.
Yeah.
I went, oh no, he learned that from me.
I remember my folks telling me they would give me a direction when I was a kid, and they'd say, and I'd say, why? And because I told you so. And I swore I was never going to say that to my kids. The first child, I didn't do it as much, but then it got to the point where, because I told you so. Trust me, I'm your parent. I've got your best interest in mind because I told you so. So, yeah.
Well, we mimic what we know. I mean, it makes sense. You were raised with these people for at least the first 18 years of your life, and it's a system. It's a family system. And if you don't think that, then, I think that's a little naive, honestly, like, because it is a system. It kind of goes together, and you take those beliefs with you into, your adult situations.
Yeah.
And
yeah, and how wonderful that the neuroscience has caught up
yeah,
with learning how to change that mindset intentionally, not just living with that groove that I've been playing that record over and over again, that I can literally do some things to proactively change my thoughts.
But it has to come from within, though. That's what I've seen from a lot of like my clients. Sometimes it's so ingrained that it's really, really, it's like peeling off an onion and being like, okay, but why?
Yeah.
But why? But why? But why? But why? Because sometimes you don't want to look. You don't want to.
That's right.
Mix up there.
Yeah.
What is not damaged, let's say, but it could be damaged. And
scary and painful sometimes, but unless it's my idea and my why, then there's no motivation.
It takes,
So,
it takes courage to dig into your history and find out why you think or why you do what you do. Or it takes courage because it can be kind of scary.
It can be very scary, and that's kind of what I did on my own self journey. Like 5 years ago, I really had to look within, and sometimes you don't even notice it. Other people, it's usually your partner, I feel, because they are so, they're the most intimate person with you day to day. They're living with you. They see the stuff that you're doing, your mannerisms, your triggers, your whatnot, and sometimes it's like a question mark. Like, wait a second, that is, and it's okay to be authentic and tell your mate. I don't think there's anything wrong in a respectful manner. But then that person has to be willing to at least question it, not shut it down, because then there's something going on. It's like, well, why are you getting so defensive? Like if it was all, sugar coated, then what's the big deal? Like, why can't you at least look at it?
Yeah. One thing I learned too is that not judgment, but what's the word? I'm sorry. Conflict. Conflict is healthy. I mean, if it's appropriate, because it breeds intimacy. It goes to those places wherever the conflict is. It will eventually make us closer and feel safer. But at first, it's very scary. Yeah, and so leaning into conflict is very, very powerful, and sometimes it has to be facilitated.
Sue always used to tell. She was our coach in the program where I was the sponsor or the person leader in the situation. She would always talk about what I just went blank. What were we talking about? You just said
leaning into conflict.
Yeah.
Dipping your toe in the water.
Yeah. There was a particular thing that you were saying. It'll pop up in a little bit. Go ahead.
That's all right. But I mean, conflict, I'm sure you find that with your clients, that it breeds intimacy.
I remember what it was. Sandy. Conflict is broken expectations. We all have a certain thought process of how another person should show up. And conflict is brought about because we have this idea of what somebody else should be doing. And boy, that takes maturity to get past that. At the age of 70, I still struggle with that. Not having a pat answer of what I think should happen and then not have it be that way.
Yeah. Kind of goes back to the let them theory. Yeah, let them. So what would you... Who is your ideal client, Evelina?
Yeah, very good question. So ideal client would be someone who honestly is interested in growth. Like if you don't have a growth mindset and can actually look within, I just don't think it's going to be worth, their time, even to go into like a coaching program, because you have to, again, you do need to take some accountability for your life. You can't always blame the whole world, so I think the ideal client is someone who is interested in growth, who is curious about it and wants to develop themselves and wants to have like, a better, more clarity as well. Someone who is looking for a little bit more clarity and being held accountable, because that's what a coach will do. We will hold you accountable, not just you're going to come in there and say, you want this. It's like, okay, what are you doing? Like sometimes they'll say, I want a better relationship with my spouse. Okay, cool. What are you doing though to get to that point? Like what steps can we take to get you to that point? I think it's the clarity and the growth mindset. You got to have that.
So you talked about a kind of a discovery call. And you talked about sort of maybe some questions you ask people to find out whether or not you're a good
Mhm.
match. Can you give us a couple of those questions?
Yeah, so the discovery call is a 30-minute discovery call that they can, go on my website and book it through Real Authentic Self. And so some of the questions I ask is just like, first I ask, why are you, even interested in the program? Like what type of things are you looking to improve in your life? Because we're always trying to improve something, right? So I always kind of
Yeah,
start the call, where are you at in your life and what is your biggest challenge? Because we all have challenges. If you really think
sure.
about it, okay, where could I improve in my life? What is something that I want to do?
Mhm.
So that would be a question I would ask. And then I always ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you on like a growth mindset? Like, because usually I work with people that are like 8 and above. Like if you're like a 3 or a 4, I don't think you're gonna continue on with the coaching program because I offer different packages. They're 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month, depending on what your needs are. But it does take time,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of back and forth. There's questionnaires. I recommend different resources for them. So, there is got to be you have to put the work
Yeah,
in. It's not just to be
yeah,
me talking to you. That's like therapy. That's different than actual coaching. Coaching will
yeah,
take you to the next
yeah,
level, and we
yeah,
will push you. I will push you. It's not
yeah,
sometimes you'll be like, oh man, like that coach. But that's the way you move forward, And I have a coach too. I wouldn't be coaching if I myself didn't have a coach. So I have a
that's
coach
right.
and they have pushed me to the next level.
Uh-huh.
And I thank them for that because I am in the position today where I have my own coaching company because of the coach that
Mhm.
I have.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
So, I love coaching because it drives people to the next level quickly, whereas therapy, I think, takes
Correct.
forever. And, lots and lots of talk, and I'm not sure they get the actionable steps. So I'm sure that's why you went into it too,
Yeah, because coaching, I mean, therapy I feel is more like past. Coaching is
Uh,
more future, like present and future and
mhm,
accountability. And again, you do need to
mhm,
talk about the past because that definitely shaped you, but you don't stay in the past. You talk about it, okay, you peel the onion, and then now it's like, okay, we understand how got to where you are. How can we get you to that next level now? And that's
right,
where you got to
right.
move forward and actually, yeah, hold them
Uh-huh.
accountable. There's like a measuring system that I use to get them to that next level. So I think that's the
Mhm.
difference between the coaching and the therapy,
Sure.
traditional therapy.
Yeah, I like to define coaching as eliciting best thinking
Hmm.
in my clients. That because I don't like to do, I mean, as much as people sometimes ask for guidance or what would you do, I really try to avoid that because I want them to use their brain muscle, and come up with their own ideas.
No, it's so funny, Sue, because that's exactly what was going to be my next point. Yeah, they have to think of the why and the solutions because if you give the solution, that may not be the best fit for them, right? Because you're just
Right.
giving the solution based on what they're saying. They have to themselves always come up with at least 2 or 3 solutions and then test them. Is that the best
Yeah.
one? You don't judge, like you said, never judge,
No.
but you got to ask those why questions exactly, and they eventually come up with their
Mhm.
own why and their own solutions like,
Uh-huh.
oh, okay, that's actually a good solution.
Mhm.
Exactly, because we don't want to give advice because
No. Yeah, and the trouble with advice is if they take it and it fails, then it gets to be my fault, so they get to go back into being a victim.
exactly, well, you told me exactly, so it's like, well, we discussed the different solutions, you thought that was the best one,
Yeah.
and ultimately that's where that intuition comes in. The client
Mm.
knows what's best for them. Like they really
Yeah.
know, okay, yeah, that solution is not going to really work for me. That's cool that worked for somebody else, but that is
Yeah.
not going to work for me. And you kind of
Right.
know, like after a couple
Uh-huh.
sessions,
Oh, yeah.
they know just by saying it out
Yeah.
loud, yeah, okay, that's not going to work. Or yeah, that
Yeah.
actually could work. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
And half the time when you have your coaching call, they know exactly what your first question is going to be. Sandy, what was my first question to you when you would call me? Remember?
What are you wanting? What are you thinking? feeling?
Oh, okay, that's good. We would do that later. The first one was back to the organizational
Or
chart.
what's your role and goal?
Which-
What's the role and goal?
What role are you in and what's your goal? And then that would throw them into alignment, and it was always very
Right.
interesting. So any other things that you want to put on the table here before we kind of go into our session wrap up?
Yeah, I think, definitely like reach out. I feel like a lot of people, like I don't know if they're scared or they don't want to do it. I feel like everybody, a coach is the best thing, honestly, I think for people, and everyone always has something that they could improve or that they're struggling with. It's okay. You're not alone in this, like there's
No.
people here, to help and take that first step. I think is the biggest step. Actually, sometimes it's just taking that first step and booking that discovery call and realizing that it's okay. Like many people do it. It's okay. It's rewarding. It's the most rewarding thing. Like working on yourself truly is where the real change happens. That's where you can really make changes in your life. If you wanted to make changes, is to reflect, look at yourself, and move forward.
Well, you're the only one that can control your outcome. No, you can't let circumstances or other people do that for you. You have to make that decision for yourself. Like you said, it becomes a victim mentality if you can blame everyone else for things that happen in your life instead of saying, okay, so how do I own that? And what can I do with that going forward?
Yep. Yeah. And sometimes it's very difficult, but that's where you have to, again, your actions speak louder than any words can ever say.
Yeah. So our closing activity is to kind of go around the room here, and we'll start with you. And what is one takeaway from our conversation today?
Yeah, the judgment piece. I really like that, like you don't want to judge other people because everybody has their own experiences, let them have their experiences. That whole Let Them theory, it's an awesome book by Mel Robbins. Exactly. Let them be who they are, and you choose to react how you react. So don't judge because there's a reason why they have those opinions, and let them have them. It's not your way is not better than their way. So just let them, and focus on yourself, not what they said or did.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Sandy.
Well, I like the reminder that you shared with us about the fact that we don't have to explain ourselves to others. And that's part of that respectful thing of if you know me as a person, you can respect where I'm coming from without me having to do a dialogue on what that looks like or why I'm thinking what I'm thinking. I think that's important because I think we, because we want to be polite, feel like somehow we have to explain ourselves, and that's not always the case.
Yep.
Yeah. My takeaway is meeting a wonderful entrepreneur that jumped off her bridge and started her own company. And that, was just, thank you so much for coming on. And any way that we can help you, you let us know. We're here. If you want to come on again, just let us know. And
well, thank you. Yeah, and people can find me. I'm on all the social media, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, under Real Authentic Self. You'll find me there. You can Google my company, have a website. So looking forward to reaching more people and getting out there. I think that's
absolutely. Well, we're glad to help you. And like I said, I'll be sending you recordings either this afternoon or tomorrow.
Perfect.
So good. Thank you so much. And please hang on with us for just a minute as I close this off. Okay.
Your company. I hope that it goes very, very well for you and that you help many